Okay, so another major villain in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex has been defeated, and it really raises a major question. And that's how much longer can this series go based on the cast of villains that we have thus far? Because while yes, there's still quite a bit of things to get done in the Boruto story, ultimately, the villains that we've been presented with over the last few years have pretty much dwindled down to a very small number. Because we started this whole thing with the Divine Trees, and it eventually even grew with one extra after we got that clone once they caught Shinki. So we had about like 5 villains. Eventually he was defeated. Eventually the Moegi clone was defeated. And now after a long and strenuous battle, we also finally seen the defeat of Mamushi, which there's something to be said about how he was defeated as well, with props on one end, but on the other side of things it was like, wow, actually I don't even want to say it was a bad thing, because it was just very unexpected and definitely a big win for the next generation. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button and that bell if you want more videos like this. So yeah, honestly, after the last few chapters of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, it does feel like the end is coming closer for this story, because again, one of the main villains that we've had for this arc was defeated, and it was at the hands of the next generation. So I want to start off by saying that this might be the most monumental moment of the next generation cast thus far, period. Like out of all of the next gen cast, aside from like the, I guess you would say, big three of Boruto, Sarada, Mitsuki, or well, and Kawaki, we've rarely seen the next generation catch a major win like this one. Because despite the fact that it looked like it was, yo, come on now, bro, what are we doing here with Mamushi having a quadrillion clones, and Sarada was kind of at her wit's end, which we're gonna get into that as well. But ultimately it was like, how were we gonna do this? Because it was a very specific type of thing that you had to do in order to defeat him, and yet we've seen that, yeah, they caught the win. And of course you could throw the argument that, yo, Koji giving a little bit of insight on things to come is a major aspect that helps. But even more so, I just really want to give genuine props to Inojin. Inojin actually really did something incredible in a major way, and that's the fact of helping to, and honestly, I don't want to say being the sole person that did it, but giving one of the final directions to making Mamushi fall, where basically Inojin kind of gave the layup to Damon of like, yo, dog. He basically provoked him into essentially attacking Mamushi's eyes, and then bow. While Inojin took a little bit of a hit there, ultimately Mamushi was inevitably defeated. And yeah, considering the fact that so many criticisms have been faced against the next generation of this cast, like, you know, we've rarely gotten some major moments that people unanimously have said like, yo, they did their thing. I do gotta give props where they do, and Inojin actually really got it done. Because if it wasn't for the fact of Inojin taking over Mamushi for that moment and essentially utilizing that opportunity to provoke Damon, then none of this would have happened. So once again, yo, the next generation, they caught one at the very least with that aspect. But now the Sarada thing, right? Because the Sarada situation was something that, honestly, I'm a little bit, I don't want to say torn on it, but it definitely feels like, come on, bro. Because essentially, Sarada, during the battle with Mamushi, which it looked like she possibly was going to be the one to actually maybe either take them completely out or dwindle it down to a very small number. Ultimately, during the battle, her visual prowess essentially gave out, and she essentially was like unusable for the remainder of the battle. Which at first is like, oh wow, yo, that's just a demonstration of like, you know, fighting Mamushi drained her chakra or whatnot. But it was a little bit of the aftermath, where I want to say it was one of the latest chapters, I think it was maybe 34 or somewhere around that ballpark, where it really showcased that, yo, they really made it that Sarada utilizing her eyes in like a handful of times have already made it to the point where she's kind of, well, essentially her eyes aren't doing that well right now. Because in the aftermath, when she's healing up with Sakura, essentially Sakura says how many fingers they're holding up, and they showcase that, yeah, she's not really looking all that well. And to be honest with you, I guess it's not too far off of what happened with Sasuke, because if you go back to when Sasuke started having those same problems where his vision was kind of, you know, getting a bit wavery, so to speak, ultimately it was during the Kage Summit, the 5 Kage Summit, where Sasuke invaded, and it was mainly within the realm of that battle where he started having those problems. So it seems as though, I don't know if it's more of the newer generation, because I don't think Itachi, like, yo, Itachi went a very, very long time with those eyes without ever getting the, you know, transplant, so to speak, to kind of have full vision or whatnot, and ultimately not be distracted by and have his vision deteriorated. But, you know, going back to, again, Sasuke having a similar issue, so I don't want to be hypocritical and say, like, it's only happening with Sarada, although you could throw the argument that Sasuke was, you know, going really hardcore and using the crap out of those eyes, while Sarada had about a handful of battles, although, again, you could throw the argument that these battles that she's had are against foes that are ridiculously strong, although I guess Sasuke was fighting against the Kage, so there's that. But yeah, it just kind of feels like it's very quick that Sarada is already having these issues and is like, man, where do we go from here? Because, you know, there's a few options, of course, of which way things could go in order to bring her back to fully capable vision. One of which, again, Orochimaru. Orochimaru having, you know, his techniques, his labs and all that stuff, that could be one of the ways to make her go back to kind of having that full vision. Maybe he has some Sharingan tucked away or something. Maybe he still has utilization of some of the Shin Uchiha stuff. Somehow, some way, Orochimaru possibly could play a part in this, although considering that they rarely mention the dude and he's just kind of like here and there but rarely like fully involved in things, it probably won't be Orochimaru. So then you got to think like, okay, what else is there to do? I mean, back in the days of OG Naruto, we seen Naruto bring Might Guy from the brink of death after he used the 8 gates with just touching him. So anything is really possible when you really think about it. But yeah, it really did feel a little bit like, damn, she just got those eyes not that long ago. It just started utilizing the powers and already she's at this state. Maybe there's a possibility that in between the time skip that she utilized her powers, even though she wasn't really utilizing this form of it, but maybe something there could have drained her down to this point. But it's still kind of like, yeah, she got those eyes before the time skip, so ultimately she's been, you know, viewing things up until this point, but we only really seen her in a strenuous battle over recent times. So I don't know, for me the Sarada situation is like, she just started really getting epic as well, and we started getting into all the emotional aspects of how she feels and all this stuff, and then it feels like a convenient way to sideline the character while other stuff progress. Then I want to note a factor that I was kind of like, I wonder why they do this. Is it strictly just a straight up fan service moment? And I don't mean like ecchi fan service. What I mean by that, and if you don't know what ecchi is, it's like, you know, lewd showing of body parts and stuff like that. But it was very, very strange to say the least that Sakura brought up Itachi. I was just kind of like, why? You know what I mean? Like, what was the reason for that? Is there some sort of foreshadowing that at some given point he's going to be brought up? Was it just like the author was thinking about Itachi at that particular moment, where basically Sakura was breaking it down to Sarada about this moment and that moment, and then ultimately was like, yeah, you know, your father was like that and his big brother too, and it's kind of like, why bring up Itachi? So that was something that I was really puzzled by, of like, bro, is there any reason for that? Was it just for the sake of saying it? I mean, I know here and there they casually bring up once in a blue like a important character from the past, but they rarely do it, and I'm curious, like, you never know, maybe this could be something that's going to lead into Sarada learning more about Itachi from somebody. Although who could possibly bring that information to her? Who knows? Kind of again leads more and more into Orochimaru now that I think about it, because Orochimaru, he could be one of the people to facilitate this whole thing with her vision. If anybody could give her some information from the past and would be willing to do so, it would be Orochimaru, although it would be a little bit skewed considering, well, we know how Orochimaru can be. I mean, maybe he's changed over time because after the whole Mitsuki situation and whatnot, he might be a little bit different. I mean, he even kind of proclaimed earlier on of like, yo, Mitsuki's gonna be the moon to the sun and all of this other aspect. So it could very well be that Orochimaru has changed and, you know, turned over a new leaf, so to speak. Although it just really would be bizarre for Sarada to get, you know, an upgrade via Orochimaru. Like, what? Considering we know all the stuff that Orochimaru put Sasuke through and all the other history. Like, yeah. And also something else I wanted to point out is the fact that after the Battle of Mamushi, it really got me thinking like, yo, wait a minute. Everything that happened or whatnot, and obviously, you know, it was probably a very, you know, scary experience for Ada, but still, it kind of feels like Ada once again got away, let's just say scot-free, so to speak. What I mean by that is like, yo, if you think about it, a lot of the turmoil that Boruto has been in, if not most of the turmoil, you could throw the argument that is due to what Ada did at the, you know, brink of before the time skip happened, when she made that big change and whatnot and switched essentially the places of Boruto and Kawaki. That kind of led into everything that we have now and all of the strife that Boruto has faced since, you know, the time skip or whatnot, having to be a refuge and be on the run, you know, all of the stuff that he's been through. again, Ada played a part in it because she helped out Kawaki. So even now, when, you know, she kind of gets away from Mamushi, despite Mamushi was really going after her, trying to take her down or whatnot, and she still pretty much, you know, utilized Damon to kind of be, I don't want to say a scapegoat, but essentially be one of the key factors as to why she wasn't, you know, nothing happened to her. Is like, yo, Ada really be like, she got like max plot protection around her or something, because it's just, again, nothing happens to Ada. And it's not that I'm like, oh yeah, son, get her, but it's just like, damn, no consequences for Ada, huh? I get that beneath it all and what she did, of course, with the Kawaki thing, that she's just a, you know, girl that just wants love and stuff like that. I get that aspect, but come on, dog, you know what I'm saying? What happened? Yo, there's karma in this series, right? Where's the karma at right there? What is it? You know what I mean? I almost was gonna say, what is karma waiting for? But again, I'm not on that type of timing, okay? I'm not trying to like, oh, Ada, take her down. Like, that's not where I'm at with it. But it is something interesting to note that, yeah, Ada should be pretty lucky, to say the least. Or maybe I would say blessed. I don't know, though. Why bless Ada after what she did to Boruto? I don't know. Then we also got Code reemerging once more after the finale of the battle against Mamushi, where Boruto basically goes to save Bug, you know, the original person of whatnot. And it was just kind of like, to me personally, well, one, like, bro, Boruto has a great heart. Like, let's just be very clear. Boruto, he may be badass, he may look serious, he may be all that stuff or whatnot, but he has a great heart to take that bulb, and instead of doing something else that he could utilize it for, he goes and he's trying to save Bug. And I'm just kind of like, this dude, he has a great heart, and he inherited that from his father, clearly. But he goes, of course, to save Bug, and Code was laying in wait. Once again, Kashi and Koji giving the heads up, and I do appreciate the aspect of having those possibilities of what could happen there, like getting it's almost like a quick time event, so to speak, of like, it could happen this way, it could go this way. Essentially, the slimmest chance was Code teaming up with Boruto and saying, you know, forget the divine trees, I'm gonna work with you guys now. And clearly, like, I mean, I guess it's interesting that it's on the table, but it's not really, because it's never gonna happen. Then again, never say never, unless you're saying ForneverWorld, you know what I'm saying? ForneverWorld, shout outs to ForneverWorld. Anywho, as Boruto is approaching Bug, he already has the drop on Code and is able to defeat Code before ultimately saving Bug, or trying to anyway. And Code is like, yo, damn, once again, honestly, I'm gonna just keep it all the way real. I am really disappointed with the way that they handled Code in this series up until this point. I'm gonna just keep it all the way real, especially being the precursor, so to speak, for lack of better term. You know, when Ishiki Otsutsuki was originally defeated, it was very much so hyped up that Code is next. He's inheriting his will. He has the white karma. Like, there was so many, you know, things I was pointing that Code is him. Code is supposed to be him. Code is going to be him. It is him. And at every single point, you see that Code again gets defeated. And it brings me back to also that point where they were talking about like getting rid of the character entirely, and how they had that discussion and they didn't. And it almost feels like whoever was on the side of like, yeah, let's let Code stay around, is being punished essentially, or Code for that matter, shall I say, is being punished because the other person, maybe Kishimoto, wanted to get rid of Code, and because, you know, he didn't have his way, maybe Kishimoto, every time Code is about to do something epic, Kishimoto's like, no, we're not gonna have that happen, we're stopping that right there. Because, I mean, come on, dog. Like, I get it that Koji gives the info ahead of time or whatnot, but it's like, geez, yo, the way they handle Code is just like, it just doesn't feel like that should be going on with a villain that was supposed to inherit the previous major villain's will, and just kind of, he's supposed to be epic, but they just, I don't know, maybe it would have been better off if the character was removed from the story earlier on, or became a good guy earlier on, or just something else other than what they're doing with the character, because it's just kind of like, we don't need a punching bag in Boruto, and I don't mean that literally, but we don't need something of like a character that just is immediately defeated every time he shows up. Like, that just feels like, why? I did find it interesting as well that it seems like the narrative has really changed in a strange way, at the very least for the finale of this arc, where you noticed how everybody was kind of working together, even though it's not said out loud, but like, you see Kawaki working to take down Mamushi, you see Mitsuki, you see Boruto, you see everybody working together. I think even Chocho kind of pointed out of like, nah, I think Boruto is legit or whatnot. So like, you got all of these people that are working together, despite the fact that in particular, you know, there's supposed to be this big clash after the end of the time skip or whatnot, where Boruto is supposed to be hated by everybody, and of course Kawaki and him shouldn't be ideally working together, right? They're supposed to be on opposing sides. We've seen, of course, the foreshadowing. Like, they're not supposed to be working together. So the fact that they are, I guess, is just more of a interesting and a kind of more validity of the threat that they're all facing right now, that they gotta put, you know, all their problems gotta go aside right now so that they could work together and win. And then after that, y'all want to squabble, whatever it is, y'all could do that. But right now, these divine trees, this takes more precedence over internal problems, internal squabbles. Also, I did find it interesting that Amado brought forth that, yo, Kawaki, let's have a meeting. Like, yo, Amado, he got some cojones, as they say, because every time him and Kawaki are together at this point, Kawaki almost always threatens him or goes on some crazy warpath. So the fact that Amado yet again approaches on some, like, I need to speak with you or whatnot, first of all, more than likely that's going to possibly lead to another upgrade with another, I don't want to say setback to it, but, you know, there's always a balance with the upgrades that he gets. Like, Kawaki will get a massive upgrade, but then it's something like, yo, you're gonna lose stamina a lot quicker, or whatever the drawback will be to this upgrade. And I'm imagining that that's where we're going to go with it as well, because I mean, clearly, if they were all going very hard and there was, I want to say, to a certain degree, struggling to take down Mamushi, yeah, an upgrade is going to be needed to take down the remaining two of the divine tree that we have, Hidari and Jura. So that's probably what's going to happen. But it's been a while since we got like a major piece of information or major reveal via Amado. In my opinion, I think it's time that Amado gives like some massive reveal, because I usually always, first of all, it's one of the most interesting things is always like, before anything, like, how does this dude know all this stuff? Yeah, I think it's about that time again. Amado is one of those characters and one of those key characters that usually moves the plot along in some form or another, whoever he may be, because that whole thing of who he is he just some regular dude? Is he somebody from the past and we just can't pinpoint? Like, whoever he is, he's very, very important, and he usually moves the plot along on some like Orochimaru type of vibe. And then that brings me back to kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video to begin with, of the fact that it does seem like Boruto is coming to its end closer and sooner than we may expect, or just in general, like, considering one of the other big villains that was introduced a while ago with Bug turning into, of course, Mamushi, he's been defeated and doesn't seem like he's going to be returning, because yeah, Boruto was just a little bit late to retrieve the bulb to him, which again, I still can't believe, like, Boruto really got a good heart, bro. So Bug as a character in this series will no longer be around, but it makes you kind of question, how much longer can the divine trees be a credible threat unless they do something that I don't want them to do? I don't want any more new divine trees. Like, we already had, you know, the extension when Shinki got into Ryu, I think it was. I don't want to go that path already. Like, you know, we got 2 divine trees left. I do think that, in all honesty, it would be a very epic climactic battle, at the very least, for the divine trees, if the final battle takes place of Jura and Hidari versus whoever's going to be going at them. There's obviously going to be maybe a little bit of training before then or whatnot, but ultimately I feel like that would be the best course of action to kind of completing this whole thing. Yeah, it probably will be a longer fight, and of course it'll be more so after Sarada's healed up, because obviously the whole eye situation, and it could very well go away of Sarada being on the battlefield and not being able to do too much, and after whoever goes at it with Hidari, that's how she's going to get her eyes. Because I know I said Orochimaru being a major factor possibly could be, you know, the thing, but Hidari, yeah, him kind of still having those memories of Sasuke, there's a very high probability that that's how she's going to get the EMS, so to speak. But again, it kind of makes me wonder, like, okay, how will that happen? Because she's right now incapable of, you know, throwing down or anything like that. So the whole idea of Sarada versus him is probably not going to be the case. It's probably going to be other characters, whether it be that Boruto faces off against him, maybe Boruto and Mitsuki. It would make sense to, you know, throw Sakura in there. I'm gonna be real. Sakura, you know, off healing to the side while all this is going on, considering how powerful she's supposed to be, is a little bit ridiculous. I'm just saying. It's like, bro, Sakura is like Hokage level. Like, why is she not? You know what I'm saying? So that would make for a great battle, you know, the wife versus the counterfeit husband type of situation. But regardless of what, it probably will lead that route. But again, that's going to be a miss of not having Sarada versus him, unless it's somehow that he gives her the eyes on some cocky level and says, I still could take you, and then boom, boom, that would be major. And with the story kind of dwindling down, some of the remaining things we got is, for example, it was foreshadowed, and I don't see it not happening, the final Otsutsuki, like the leader that Amado spoke about a long time ago or whatnot, that's probably still going to be a major factor of this whole scenario. So once these two, Hidori and Jura, are defeated, more than likely that's when Shibai will arise. Then of course we got the Boruto versus Kawaki squabble that I see probably being handled the same way Naruto versus Sasuke was handled. No more than 5 chapters, honestly, and that might be even a stretch. I just see that it's going to be probably an epic battle for sure, but it's not going to be like a full-on arc. Of course, the returns of Naruto, Hinata, and Sasuke. Sasuke will probably be a lot sooner than Naruto, especially once Hidori is defeated. That's one bulb that we got to make sure gets returned immediately, you know what I'm saying? But I see that happening sooner, of course, than Naruto, and probably not far off from now. Of course, Amado's true motives outside of the thing with his daughter, like, is he good? Is he bad? Like, who is this dude? Shipping things will probably be at the very end of who Boruto ends up with, because, yeah, I'm not even going to get into that. Likewise, with next Hokage, it'll probably be Naruto and maybe a time skip again to Sarada eventually becoming Hokage. The end of Code, although I do think that Code is going to have one epic moment before all is said and done. I do think that Code is going to do something epic, but we're still not quite there yet. And regardless of whatever it is, it does need to happen, just because it's like, y'all really kept him around in this story all this time just to constantly have him looking like, yo, bro, he can't catch a break or anything like that. Like, no, we definitely need to see Code look epic in some way, whether it be that he turns a new leaf and becomes a good guy. Something there needs to happen, because it's like, come on. Again, of course, the 2 divine trees that are remaining, which that'll probably happen before a lot of this other stuff. Likewise, with Sarada's vision being fixed, I see that happening again, whether it be because of the battle or during the battle with the divine tree Hidori. And of course, something that's been built on the side, which is a really dope concept, and I like that they're doing, even though it's not father and son, they decided, all right, we're going to do father and daughter with the whole Himawari's unlock potential and Kurama and all that stuff. That's going to be something major. Probably, if it's not for the final battle against Jura and Hidori, maybe if Shibai Otsutsuki shows up, whatever it is, Himawari's character definitely needs to be explored a little more as far as her hidden potential, her female Gohan side. And even with all that being said, I say that to say that Boruto still does feel like it's coming to a close sooner than later, because we're down to 2 of the main villains that's been introduced for quite some time now. Once they're done, yeah, maybe if Shibai arises, that's great, but a lot of these things can be done and be resolved in a couple of chapters of, you know, the finale, so to speak. Let me know what you guys think about this whole thing, though. How are you feeling about the Boruto manga as it stands right now, leading into, I want to say the latest chapter coming is 35 as of the recording of this video? How do you feel about it? How did you feel about the battle against Mamushi's defeat, and your overall thoughts and expectations for the future? How much longer you think the manga has now that we've seen a major defeat of a major villain? Okay, so the creator of Fairy Tail has just stepped in it, and it seems as though a lot of turmoil and upset fans and backlash is headed his way after what recently went down. And normally I don't really cover this per se, but this was something that I found to be very fascinating, because essentially what's been going down, in case you don't know, for a while now, a long while now. Essentially, the Fairy Tail story has kind of hinted at something of 2 characters being together. There's been so many instances of essentially like these characters looking like they're gonna be together. There was a lot of instances in this story that they basically hinted that these 2 characters were going to essentially, you know, end up together. Natsu and Lucy. And Natsu and Lucy, throughout all of the journeys, have never really been together, although there was these times where there was like, I think, these alternate versions of them that I think in another world were together, something like that. I could be off on that, but ultimately there's been so many instances of the creator of Fairy Tail hinting that, yo, this might be, you know what I mean? And well, recently, the creator of Fairy Tail actually even said something, I want to say it was at a convention, that had a lot of people very much so stirred up and made the entire fandom go crazy. Because basically, Fairy Tail author Hiro Mashima officially confirmed that Natsu and Lucy canonically have feelings for each other for the first time ever. This is the first time where he officially said, like, no, they kind of have something for each other, something there, whatnot. Mind you, again, this is years of these two characters being hinted at being together or something along the lines of that. And also, there's been so many other things surrounding this thing. Like, yo, this gotta be one of the most complicated, you know, idea of ships, because it's not even really, you know, a ship per se. It's an idea of a ship, because there's been for a long time now, story-wise, another ship that the anime side of things have wanted for a very long time. Because, again, there's the idea of what Hiromashima wants, you know, the manga side of things. Hiromashima, he wants Natsu and Lucy to be together. The anime staff and the anime side of things wants Natsu to be with the silver-haired girl. Like, that's the one that they want him to be with. I can't recall her name or whatnot, but regardless of what, they want him to be with that character. And it was even kind of pushed forward, and Hiromashima kind of, you know, went along with some of it or whatnot, and basically was like, you know, he kind of maneuvered the manga a little bit to include more of her, because the anime staff was like, yo, this is who we want, you know, Natsu to end up with. So there's kind of been this back and forth for a while now of basically these two entities that wants Natsu to end up with one person and wants Natsu to end up with the other person. And ultimately, which is kind of crazy, because you would think that Hiromashima would have the final say so, right? But then the guy gets confusing about this whole scenario, you know, the writer of the story, Hiromashima, where he essentially, after saying that at that convention that, yo, they canonically have feelings, and he gets everybody all riled up essentially, then he backtracks, which really, we're going to talk about in a second, makes me question what happened behind the scenes or whatnot. But he backtracks and says this. Subscribe and hit that bell to get more if you want more of these videos and more of these updates in the world of anime and manga. Fairy Tail author Hiromashima says Natsu and Lucy are not confirmed lovers. I did say they are more than friends, but I also mean less than lovers. I might make it official if I change my mind in the future, but right now, there is nothing like that in particular. Which automatically makes me think, okay, the pink-haired guy and the blonde are more so, because you gotta think, okay, they're not just friends, but they're not lovers. I don't know why I'm thinking that song, lovers and friends. So then what are they? Like, yo, to me that just sounds like they're family, like they got like some family ties or something like that. But then it also, again, with some of the thoughts that Hiromashima, I guess, has had over time, we've seen some raunchiness that he has thought of Lucy and Natsu together. So it makes me think that Hiromashima, the author of this story in particular, wants these two to be together, but for whatever reason, whether it be maybe his editors behind the scenes, what the anime staff has always wanted and dreamed of, whatever the case may be, Hiromashima has not been able to do it. And in fact, when he actually goes for it, like he goes in front of a giant audience and says, yes, they do, you know, they like each other, or whatever the case may be of what he said at that convention, then after the fact, he has to backtrack and be like, yo, wait a minute. I didn't say they was boning, you know what I'm saying? I didn't say none of that. I just said, you know what I'm saying? They might be a little bit more than friends, you know what I mean? Like, Hiromashima, I'ma just keep it all the way. I'ma just keep it 100 with you, dog. Like, you gotta make up your mind, homie. You gotta really settle this once and for all. This has been quite a few years in the making. We have multiple things like, yo, if you're like, all right, I'm just not gonna really go hardcore with it anymore for the Natsu Lucy, the Nalu ship, so to speak. I'm gonna just go for what the anime staff wants, with, you know, Natsu being with the silver-haired girl. Then go do it already. Like, stop playing around, stop hinting around, stop, like, yo, it's like this dude is whispering to himself, and then when it comes out to the public, he even gets a little bit brave, and he's like, yo, I actually like this pairing right here. And then when it comes down to it, he's like, well, wait a minute, hold on. It's like, I don't know, again, behind the scenes what's going on right there, but Hiromashima gotta make up his mind. Hiromashima gotta figure it out on what's going on here, because there's a lot of people that are very much so invested. And mind you, these ships have been quote unquote years in the making, so to speak. And Hiro Mashima has just kind of been, I don't want to say flip-flopping, because again, I don't even want to, and if any of this comes across as disrespectful, by no means, not from this person right here, that's not what my intention is at all, because at the end of the day, I got a lot of respect for dude. He's one of the most grandiose hustlers in the manga world, period, bar none. This dude will do like 5 stories at once and work on developing a video game. Like, I will never disrespect Hiro Mashima because that dude's hustle is insane. But I will say, on the romance side of things, is like, bruh, if you're gonna make Natsu Lucy a thing, then I guess if that's what you want to do, then do it. But at the same time, if you're not, and you're going to keep flip-flopping back around, then stick with, you know, the Natsu silver-haired girl thing. Whatever it is you're going to do, dog, you got to make up your mind already. Like, yo, he's pissing off a lot of people with this whole... And on top of it all, because I'm sure this big announcement that he made at the convention of, you know, Natsu Lucy got these feelings, and then of course him backtracking, whatever, got the fans very riled up. Then there was a announcement that there's like more fairy tale to come in the next couple months. So leading into that, a lot of shippers were very excited, like, oh, this is probably going to be where he confirms Natsu Lucy. But apparently this new fairy tale manga that's coming out, that is not going to be 100 Years Quest, it's going to be more of fairy tale. It's not even going to be about them. Like, here's what the announcement said. Fairy Tail manga is back. Hiro Mashima's brand new short-term serialization, Fairy Tail Re-Fantasia, launches in Weekly Shonen Magazine on July 29, 2026. Oh, it's not even August. As part of the franchise's 20th anniversary, it's the first fully written and illustrated release for the franchise from Mashima himself since the original series came to an end nearly a decade ago. And here's what I was telling you about. And it's centered on Luxus Dreyer. So basically it's going to be a story about Luxus, like, so it's not even going to really focus in on the fairy tale cast in its entirety, let alone Natsu and Lucy, which the shippers that are very upset right now after all the chicanery that Hiro Mashima has been pulling lately. Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. I try not to, when it comes to the fairy tale situation, I try not to get too invested because it just sometimes feels a little bit like, come on, bro. Like, you're getting the fans really, like, emotionally distressed over this stuff. And I get it. That's way too extreme. Fans need to chill out. I understand that completely. But, like, bro, I seen one fan that was like, yo, this is the impossible odds. I can't believe this. It's all because Lucy is too scared to speak up and Natsu is still stuck on his old ways. And I'm like, or maybe it's just that the writer of this story in particular just can't make up his mind and has people behind the scenes that is pulling his arm one way and pulling his arm the other way. Okay, and I guess also something worth noting is the fact of, like, at the end of the day, Hiro Mashima, while he's creating this thing, you got to imagine that if he's coming up with these scenarios, ultimately one of the things worth noting is that it's never good to lie to yourself. Being honest with how things should go is ultimately the best case scenario. So maybe Hiro Mashima sometimes kind of feels like it's an interesting route to go that way or something, but ultimately the story and the finale and everything really calls for it to go another way. So that's just something, I guess, to keep in mind, that yeah, it's good to kind of just be honest with yourself of how things should go. Regardless of what, let me know what you guys think. Do you think that in the end, when it's all said and done, Natsu's gonna end up with Lucy, or he's gonna end up with the other chick? And your overall thoughts of this whole scenario? I ain't gonna lie, Hiro Mashima, if you wasn't 1000% certain about this, why even bring it up? Why even let the classroom know what's happening here, folks? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the reason? Quoting Cardi B. Let's stop. That's all I have for this one. I'm Tim. As always, people, have an awesome day. Peace, and yeah, Nalu is not looking good. And again, if it's not friends and it's not lovers, that sounds like family ties. Okay, so I want to add an addendum to this thing, because upon finishing this video, I thought about it and I was kind of like, yo, dog, maybe I might have been a little bit too harsh with Hiro Mashima. And nowadays, I like to be objective and fair on things regarding the truth of the matter. And the truth of the matter is that it's Hiro Mashima's work, bar none. Whatever he decides, he decides. Yeah, it's maybe a little bit frustrating that it kind of goes one way or another. But in all honesty, if this is a world that he created, essentially, you got to think of it like this. Hiro Mashima is essentially the god of fairy tale, right? Like, his word is law. And maybe what he felt and he believed at that moment was that they both, wanted to be together or something like that. Again, there's so many ways for a creative mind to come about with a story. Sometimes to create a story, you got to put yourself within the story. You know what I mean? Like, you really have to go different places mentally and emotionally you never thought you would go before in order to understand what this story that you're creating truly is. And maybe at that time, that was the truth of what he felt after all this time of like, yo, this is what it is. And that's probably why he said what he said. I don't necessarily want to completely say that, behind the scenes, everybody is just telling Hiro Mashima, no, you have to go this way, that you have to go that way. I'm sure he could pretty much do whatever he wants to do. So I also want to add in that the truth of the matter is that it's Hiro Mashima's truth of whichever way this thing goes of Natsu and who he ends up with, whatnot. I also think that he probably points things out so that people can understand how he's feeling about these character ships and whatnot at the time. And again, it's just more of a pushing forth of the truth at the end of the day. Thankfully, the way that he writes Natsu in this story doesn't make Natsu look sleazy or anything like that, because it's not like Natsu is some nasty cheater that is trying to talk to multiple women or anything like that. Natsu is just Natsu, and ultimately the god of this world with the pencil is the one that draws which way things go. Essentially, Natsu is just, he's a character of the story. He's a vessel, so to speak. And, the god of this story writes the path of whichever way Natsu's gonna go. So it's not like, and I appreciate that he doesn't write any of these characters as like dirty cheaters or like, Natsu's with this one and Lucy's trying to steal, or, vice versa. It's just kind of like he writes the story the way he feels it's going and the characters maneuver forward. So I just wanted to add in that little extra aspect, because I don't like to come across, especially when I go back and I look at some of my earlier days of like, I kind of used to be a little bit harsher with certain stories and the way I would respond to chapters and stuff like that, and that's just not me anymore. I don't like to be, malicious about things or anything like that. So just wanted to add in there. Big props to Hiro Mashima. Mad respect, mad love. Like, yeah, that's all.
Homie, this is what it is. Story of her years of high. Tell them thank you for your gifts. I said, all my life. Homie, this is what it is. Story of her years of high. Tell them thank you for your gifts. I said,